What is up, cool cats of the interwebs? It is your girl, Haley, back at it with the pre-review crew for February and March 2021. Hopefully, the beginning of your new year is going swell. Now, we took a little break for January, but we're kicking it off with reviews for the games of February and the uh, previews. There we go. Words are hard today. Previews for the month of March. Now, as always, I have my favorite other two people, and I say favorite with lots of sarcasm. But I'm back at it again with Brennan
I hate to be here.
and Mike.
I second that.
So, as we all sit around this circle of mass hate waiting to go home, let's talk about some video games, which we've all come here because we absolutely adore them. But we are going to start with the review section, so we're going to talk about the games that came out in February. We are going to hit it off with Hitman 3. It is a stealth game. Its developer and publisher is IO Interactive. It came out on PC, Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X. It released the day before my birthday on January 20th, and it is sitting with an 86 top critic average, and 93% of critics recommend it. Now, I'm gonna start this off really quick. I have been watching the Rad Brad play Hitman 3 while I get ready in the morning, and he said something along the lines of like, they don't really change much since Hitman, then Hitman 2, now Hitman 3. He's like, they upgraded the graphics, different missions and things like that, but they haven't really added much in his opinion. I was like sitting there thinking like, well, what do you expect them to do? Like, it's a Hitman game. You kill people in creative fashions. Like, what more could you want from them?
Honestly, I'm in the camp that believes if something ain't broke, don't fix it. This formula that Hitman's had for years, it still works. Especially with the new stuff they're adding, additional missions and stuff over time, bringing in older missions from older games. I mean, it's like they have it down pat. They really don't have to change anything.
Yeah, I don't personally have any kind of issue with that. I mean, like, and that's especially I'm saying that because I know that I think the first one did too. And I'm only saying this because I don't truly follow Hitman, but didn't the first two follow some kind of like episodic release thing where they would release a few episodes or missions at a time, and then a couple of months later they would add more? So like, I think that's how the release for the original ones were. I mean, like, or maybe like, maybe that was DLC or something.
I think that's what they did for 2.
2? Okay.
Yeah, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean, to Haley's point, yeah, it's like, it's just more Hitman, and again, I mean, I can't fault people for wanting more Hitman, especially if it's not broke. I was watching bits of Hitman 3 during streams, and it pretty much reminded me of the Hitman game that I played. I can't even tell you which one it was, but it was a long time ago. It looked and played similarly, and if anything, maybe not specific adjustments to this specific, and they put all of the people from the Italian winery map all into one like squisher. Like every NPC fits in the level fits in this fruit squisher. And I was like, yes, this is why I want more Hitman games, so we can have funny articles and videos like this. I don't have a problem with that. I love watching these little compilation videos to see like what people come up with. And again, to Haley's point, yeah, what are they gonna add? How ridiculous can you make the scenarios without making it unrealistic as hell?
Yeah, because as ridiculous as the kills can get, there is a sense of slight realism. I don't want to say too much.
Like, if you throw a full can of soda at someone's head at the right angle, they're gonna go down, no matter where you hit them. Well, okay, maybe in specific areas it'll do more damage than others. I don't know how the anatomy of the head works, but yeah, I mean, like, there is that level of realism to a point, but I can't imagine like, Hitman 4 being like, okay, in this one you're gonna jump out of an airplane and like, it's like, it's not Just Cause, it's Hitman. So I don't really know what else they can do. And I guess that's more of a question on like what are they going to do in the future for Hitman 4? Because if there are people saying that it's getting stale now, then that might mean that they have to do another question mark reboot. Who
More
knows?
clown suits.
More clowns. Oh god,
I
no
think that was
clowns.
part 2, where you could kill people in a clown suit.
Okay, so currently through the power of Google, hold on, let me pull up this full thing. Okay, coming off of, it seems like there is no potential plan for a Hitman 4. And it says in the description on OpenCritic, death awaits, Agent 47 returns, and Hitman 3, a dramatic conclusion to the World of Assassination trilogy. So, they're shutting... What I get from that small paragraph sentence is that they're closing the book on this. Will they reopen it in the future with Agent 47? Maybe. But I feel like it might be a while because you don't want to just keep re-releasing and re-releasing and re-releasing the same thing over and over again. Like maybe they'll come out with a new hit person. Maybe it'll be female. God only knows. But it's like, how do you keep something like that fresh? I feel like a smart decision would be to take a break. And then like just try some new and different ideas and then be like, maybe in 4 years we're back at it again, guys. Here's this new person, new shit's going down.
Well, that's kind of what they did with this trilogy. Because I know there were Hitman games before these ones. There was a few Hitman games, and then it went quiet for a little bit, and then the first one out of this trilogy came out. It was still the same Hitman, but it was, I don't want to say continuation, but it was like a reboot of the series.
So maybe if they continue it within this, I don't know how it ends, I'm not to the end yet, but maybe if they do continue it within the same world, maybe it can be like a create your own Hitman.
That'd be interesting.
That would be interesting. Yeah, it's they could go, yeah, they could go either one of two routes. And yeah, I guess before when I meant Hitman 4, I guess I didn't necessarily mean like the next one, but more of like the next iteration of Hitman, which could like it would possibly be rebooted, and yeah, either what Haley said of like it being a completely new one, or kind of doing what they've already done before of like laying low for a couple years, waiting for people to sort of miss the Hitman, and then right when people are at their peak, it's like, here you go, we've been working on a new one this whole time, waiting for you to miss this.
Like, I'm not saying get rid of Agent 47, but how many times can you reboot something? One, until it gets old, and then two, to where your character's just stale.
I don't follow Hitman, but I can tell you right now that I can say confidently that no one follows the plotline of these games. There's maybe like all of 2 people, other than the guy or possibly woman that wrote it. Like, no one knows what's going on in these games, and if you claim to know, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I've only ever known people to play Hitman to just get away with wacky shit in video games. Like, that's it. No one's playing to see what happens to Agent 47. And if they are, oh my god, what are you doing?
And the agent term is so... I don't know if this is the right word that... Hold on, I have to Google it so I make sure I'm using this word correctly.
It's like playing Monster Hunter for the plot. No one does that. You're just there to kill the big monsters.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, well, that's what Hitman is.
Haha, I am using it correctly.
It lives up to its name. You just go around killing people.
The word agent is so ambiguous that it could literally be anybody. So I think if they do decide to make another one, doing a create a character, I think would be perfectly fine. Because who the fuck is Agent 47 to begin with? I don't know. I watched the movies. I still don't know. I've watched a little bit of the gameplay. I still don't know. So literally, it's like, who? It's not as specific as James Bond. James Bond, makes you assume that it's a male figure because that is a male name. But Agent is so... It could be a goddamn cat for all I know.
I was just about to bring up James Bond because he's 007. He's Agent 007.
he also has a specific name, so I feel like his is a little bit harder. Going off track here, because there was a lot of shit when they said that they were going to recast Daniel Craig, which, bless that man, is a lord. Love him so much.
You do so much James Bond.
Well, they were going to recast him as female, and everyone's like, but James Bond has always been male. And I'm like, why do we have to... Like, I feel like if we want a female James Bond, why not just give her her own series that's just as good as the movies that they're pumping out for the male character?
I've always been under the headcanon that, like, both 007 and the names James Bond are both associated together, and they're both codename. Like, in my head, and that's, like, why they're always, it's quote, always James Bond, but they're always different people. It's because it's another layer of code name for them. So, like, that's just my headcanon. That's how I sleep at night.
I sort of get that, though. I get where you're coming from.
So, like, I'm 007 being their best agent, quote, that's just what he or she is called at the time. And so, like, yeah, I would totally be cool with a female 007, a female James Bond, or a Jeanette Bond, if you will, whatever change you need to make it work, I'm cool with it. I'm more of in the idea of, like, Agent 47, and especially to kick it off to your idea, Agent 47 could technically be anyone if that's the sort of route that they go with, like, it's just a code name for our best guy, not necessarily a number. Again, this is me not knowing anything about the lore of Hitman, which, again, I'm gonna go so far as to say doesn't even really exist, though they just make it up every time when they go along. It's like Hitman 2, Hitman 1, you have all these people trying to kill you, and then Hitman 2 is like, you're trying to kill the people that are trying to kill you before they kill you, and then Hitman 3 is like, actually find out that all of that's a ruse, and there's just a completely different random group of people that are trying to kill you the whole time.
I think you just gave away the plot points of John Wick.
It doesn't. But even John Wick, no one pays attention to the narrative of John Wick. They just want to see Keanu Reeves kill people with pencils over a kidnapped dog.
He can kill me any day of the week.
We went real deep in this whole Hitman thing, and
anyway.
We don't really know.
Not Hitman. Actually talking about Hitman. We know nothing about Hitman. It's just Hitman is one of those games that, like, it comes out and I'm just like, oh, okay. It's been around forever that I'm just like, whatever.
It's very like it. Yeah, it's a niche thing, and again, it's not anything that I will ever criticize. I'm not gonna say whether or not it's good or bad. To me, it's more of the same, and if people weren't complaining about that, then power to them.
Here we go. In the comments, tell us who would win in a fight. Hitman, or Agent 47, John Wick, or James Bond. But your James Bond can only be the Daniel Craig version. That's the only one that counts.
John Wick, he killed 3 men with the pencil in a bar.
In the comments. Keep it for the comments.
No, I gotta be part of this conversation.
Okay, well then later. We're gonna move on. Okay, so Agent 47 might be able to win in a fight, but when it comes to things that are dark and spooky and pretty goddamn twisted, I think the main character of Medium would more than likely win. So let's hit it off next with the game The Medium. It is psychological horror. It's developed and published by Bluebird Team. Is that how you pronounce that? I'll say yes.
That's how I've been pronouncing it.
It looks like it. It works. It came out on PC and Xbox Series X. It released on January 28th. It's sitting at a 75 for the top critic average, and only 61% of critics are recommending this game.
I'm just going to go out and say I'm loving this game. I'm playing it right now. I'm a huge fan of old school psychological horror, the old Clock Tower, the old Silent Hill, the original Resident Evil, games like that. So, for me, that's what this reminds me of, with the fixed camera system, just the way there are slight ways to defend yourself, but for the most part, you it's you can't defend yourself. I don't know how to say it, but yeah, I'm liking this because it just feels so old school and reminiscent of like games that I love, and it's creepy as hell.
So, like, would you, when you say Resident Evil, I'm guessing you mean like the first couple, right? Where it's like,
Yeah, the ones from the '90s.
right? Okay. It seemed really interesting. It wasn't really at all what I was expecting. To be completely honest with you, at first, I was sort of expecting something kind of like Control. I don't know why, but as I was watching video of it, I was very wrong, and it looked very eerie. I don't know. I always kind of like slash hate the whole first person angle in horror games because it makes it scarier. Like that's it. Like it looked really interesting. It's not my personal favorite type of game because I'm not really big into horror, psychological thrillers, stuff like that. But it definitely looked like it was trying to be at least, I don't want to say a spiritual successor almost, but harken back to those 90s thrillers. And from what I saw, it seemed to do that just fine. And even in the reviews, it seemed kind of like hit or miss, I guess, with that like mid 70s score, which, is fine.
If you don't know anything about the Bloober team, they made Layers of Fear in 2016, The Observer in 2017, Layers of Fear 2, and Blair Witch in 2019. I just finished watching the Brad play the Blair Witch, and that was really scary. And I've been watching him play the Medium too, and I think my only critique with the Medium is it doesn't seem graphics wise, I feel like the graphics were better on the Blair Witch than they are on the Medium, but the Medium seems to have like a fixed camera angle and is third person where Blair Witch was first person. So I sort of get that. I don't know. The Medium is interesting. It's definitely something. I just don't know what yet.
It's a bit of a trip, just because, like I said, that fixed camera angle. One of the things that was scary about like the first Silent Hill was you'd go into a room, there's something terrible in that room, but because of the way the camera, is fixed, it puts things in a perspective that's kind of hard to handle, and it makes you anxious. It makes you, it scares you more. I understand some people don't like that nowadays because most games are, you control the camera. But I think the Medium did that well because there are times where the camera's fixed on, the room, and you kind of have to navigate with that without being able to twist that camera around, especially when you're trying to escape the maw.
Oh my god. I don't want to talk about that
terrifying.
Thing. Oh my god. I look away. Every single time he'd come on the screen, I'd be like, nope, mm-mm.
Yeah, the mall's creepy as hell.
No. Nightmare juice right there. Nightmare juice. I mean, it's cool. I don't hate the Medium. I'm not 100% in love with it. This would definitely be a game I pick up on sale. Just because I don't really think it looks as good as it could for the current gen that we're on, but that's just me being picky because that's the way I am. But it's cool. It really makes you think too, because you have to use a spirit well for your energy, and that's a limited resource. So I think that's really cool too.
I think they kind of had to dial back on the graphics because there are times where the game splits into two different screens.
Yeah.
Because like the title says, she's a medium. She can contact the spirit world. So the game does split off into two different screens, and you're basically playing two worlds at once. Which is why I feel the game doesn't look as good as it could. Because I have on my card, I can't do ray tracing full, and I can't have all the like all the settings ultra, because my computer starts to kind of heat up just because it's trying to do two different worlds at the same time.
And those, when she does flip into both worlds at the same time, that is so cool. Like, I always pause just to make sure I can take everything like in at that moment, because you can definitely miss the small details between the two.
Yeah, and it gets hard because I want my eyes to focus on one world more than another. And it's like, no, I should be paying attention to the normal world, but stuff looks cool in the spirit world, so my eyes kind of focus more on the spirit world. I just think it was a cool mechanic.
Definitely. So, did they I think they, if I remember correctly, they sort of teased with going between worlds in Blair Witch. Not the same way that the medium does. But they sort of brought that out early on in a different way.
I haven't played or seen anything for Blair Witch. So.
I could 100% be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that they sort of teased the switching between worlds in the Blair Witch, because in that one you have your video camera, and there's that, it's more so stuff that you can see with the video camera that you can't see, but I'm pretty sure towards the end you start like flipping between what's reality and what's not reality. But yeah, I think this game definitely needs a lot more love. It's not for everyone.
It's not.
But I mean, if you're curious about it, I'd say definitely pick it up on sale.
Or through Game Pass. That's how I'm playing it, is through Game Pass.
That too, which I always forget exists. But because we like to strike down some bad guys, and I am absolutely terrified of the Maw and would absolutely adore kicking him in the face, maybe I can learn some moves from Persona 5 Strikers. It is an action role-playing game. It's developed by Omega Forest and published by Atlas. Its platform is PC, Switch, and PS4. It came out on it is coming out on February 23rd, I should say. And the top critic average is 83, and 88% of critics are recommending this game. Now, disclaimer, at the time of us talking about this game, it is currently February 18th, so the game has not officially released yet, but we will be talking about the reviews from the critics.
Take it away, Mike.
I've been waiting so long for this game.
Like, how long is so long?
I'm talking a couple years now, because they announced it. They announced it before they announced Royal, Persona 5 Royal.
So give us some background on what this is exactly in comparison to like all the other Persona 5 games.
This, where Persona 5 and Royal were traditional JRPGs. Strikers is actually a Musou game, so like Dynasty Warriors, like Hyrule Warriors. It's one of those type of games. But it does stick with the whole Persona kind of battle system, in that you summon your personas in order to attack and to use special moves and whatnot. And it goes off, enemy weaknesses, and there's a lot of elements from Persona 5 translated into an action game.
Yeah, hold on, sorry. So I feel like to talk about Persona 5 Strikers, for a minute we have to talk about like what a Musou kind of is.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there is a trend, a slight trend that I've noticed. Because Persona 5 Strikers is both a Persona game and a Musou game at heart, right? So
yeah.
I've read that the Persona influences have been very, very like influential. Not the best word, but the calendar system is there, but it doesn't necessarily work the same way as it does in Persona 5. There are teammates, but there's not necessarily that confidant system in Persona, which again, understandable. But there are like fully fledged areas that you can walk around similar to how you would in Persona 5, where you take your main character with Morgana in your backpack and run around, talk to NPCs, go to shops and stuff. As Mike said, there were activating Persona battles to use elemental weaknesses. There are a lot of things that I think that make this a good Persona game. Not like the best, obviously. I mean, because like the removal of confidants is kind of a big thing, but it's also a Musou game, so can't really expect that anyway. But what I've noticed is that at least with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity and Persona 5 Strikers specifically, they've kind of strayed the tiniest bit from the average Musou experience, where in most Muso games, they're pretty much, it's my understanding that they're pretty much just all the same game, but the franchise adds a little bit of flavor outside of just the branding and naming. Sometimes they'll add in gameplay elements, again, similar to Persona 5's Persona weakness system, the triangle weapon system for Fire Emblem Warriors, and the Sheikah rune slate system from Age of Calamity, where the influences from the main game bleed over. But that being said, I feel like Age of Calamity and Persona 5 Strikers take a more linear approach to the whole Muso thing, which I think is an interesting shakeup to the genre, right? Where in most Muso games, there's like 10 or 15 outposts, and you have to mash buttons to kill thousands of enemies, and also at the same time strategically send other units to capture other outposts. There is button mashing, but there is that level of strategy. Whereas these two, and specifically Strikers, because I've read that it is fairly linear in certain areas, where it feels more like an action RPG than it does at a Muso at points. Does that make sense, Mike? Like,
Yeah.
and I don't. It's not a bad change. I'm not knocking it at all. I don't want to come across as if I'm knocking that. It's just something that I've noticed, though. I've noticed how Nintendo specifically is looking at the Muso genre and going, okay, well, how exactly can we shake this up? Which I think is really interesting. But that kind of culls the whole Muso thing, where I feel like when people bring that up, they go, it's art, but you either like it or you hate it. But within these cases, I feel like even if that's not the case, people can still enjoy this specific kind of Muso. And I know I'm just saying this word a lot. It doesn't make any sense. I've said it so much. I don't really like that phenomenon, but whatever. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that I think that Persona 5 not only is a decent enough Persona game, but I also think that it does shake up the Muso general gameplay loop to that it's quite interesting, and you may even enjoy it not being a typical Muso fan. I don't know if that's completely fair to say, but that's just something that I've noticed while playing Age of Calamity and while reading reviews of Strikers. Because Age of Calamity to me does not really play like... I didn't play the first Hyrule Warriors, so I can't do a direct comparison. The last one I would have played is Fire Emblem Warriors. But even those two felt very, very different. And I imagine that Strikers would feel even more different compared to Warriors. I'm doing a lot of comparing back and forth. I know that this is a hypothetical map here, but yeah, man, I've noticed that they're trying to do something different with it, and I dig it a lot. I too long didn't read. I dig the change to the Muso.
Okay, my only question is now this is a question for the whole series. As someone who hasn't followed the Persona series, but specifically talking about Persona 5, story-wise, how do all of the games line up and fit together?
All the Persona games?
Just specifically Persona 5. So Persona 5, Persona 5 Royale, and then this one.
Okay, you got your base game, Persona 5. Persona 5 Royal, something Atlas likes to do with their Persona games is they re-release them with additional content added to it. They're basically the definitive edition of that game. Because Persona 3 had FES, 4 had Golden, and then 5 had Royal. Now, Strikers is, while it is changing up the gameplay to being more action than, the RPG turn-based style that you had in the original Persona 5, Strikers continues the storyline of 5. It's kind of a mini sequel in a way.
Got it.
Also, in at least in my understanding, it does not seem to mention any royal additions, correct? Like,
from what I've seen, it doesn't.
Right, okay, yeah. And like I feel like maybe that's an easy way for them to just have an easy expansion pass wave, something like that,
I feel like that also makes sense for like people who didn't pick up Royal, so it doesn't spoil anything for them, and it also doesn't leave them out if they haven't played it.
Yeah, it is something of note though. I mean, like, because it's a continuation of the story, if you haven't played the original, I feel like this Strikers would probably not be a good stand-in for the events of the first game. Like, I've read that they'll make references, constant references to stuff that happens in Persona 5. And if you haven't played it, you miss out on half the references. So half the dialogue doesn't mean anything to you. So most of it falls flat. Like when Morgana references how she can turn into a bus, I imagine someone who hasn't played Persona 5 is like, why can this cat just turn into a bus? You know?
Why does the cat talk in the first place?
No one knows, okay? You have to play the game.
There we
Say,
go.
to play the game.
Why is there a bear in a suit? You know, like why is there a bear in a suit? I don't know why they put a bear in the suit in 4. I really don't.
Like I said, I can't explain this stuff without spoiling story.
Yeah. All in all, it looks good. And if I hadn't just bought Age of Calamity, I suppose I would be all over this. But even though I just went on a whole rant about how it's not really the same as other Musos, I'd still look at it and be like, I think I would be burnt out just on the whole Muso concept in general.
No, I already got this piece pre-ordered, preloaded, ready to go. I even got the.
Of course you do.
The Super Edition, right? Like, can't you play it tomorrow?
Yeah, I got the digital deluxe edition, so I'll be playing it tomorrow.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
My weekend. This is my weekend right here. Strikers.
Hell yeah.
Some futabe, homie.
Okay. Before we just honestly talk about some deep lore of Persona that I absolutely have no clue about, we are going to...
all my waifus.
Oh, Jesus Lord. We're going to roll it over to our preview portion for the month of March. Now, it is the beginning of the year, sort of still, so there hasn't really been a lot of, I'd say, AAA titles that came out. So our list for this month is a little short, but we are going to first talk about Story of Seasons, Pioneers of Olive Town. It is a simulation RPG. Its developer is Marvelous. There we go. English is hard. And published by Xseed Games. It's coming out on the Switch, and the release date for that is a month after Persona 5 Strikers of March 23rd.
If you like Stardew Valley, you'll like this game. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. I feel like I'm going to be talking a lot this episode. I'm so sorry. This game and the next game, I have serious feelings towards.
Let it out, my friend. Just let it out.
Okay, so first of all, before Brennan goes on his high-speed rant, let's have Brennan explain some things, because also coming out in the month of March is Harvest Moon, and you may or may not know the differences between the two, but we are going to have our resident explanation expert, Banana Boy Brennan, explain the differences between the two games.
I just hit my leg on my desk. Oh,
classic.
I just heard it right now.
Yeah. So really quick, in sort of layman's terms, I can't pronounce the original Japanese series, but Harvest Moon has been the farming franchise that you pretty much know in some capacity. If you've played Stardew Valley, you've basically played Harvest Moon. I believe it was originally released on the SNES, and it pretty much just grew from there. I first started playing the series when it was the one on GameCube. It was before Magical Melody, and I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but played the shit out of that one, and I played the shit out of Magical Melody. And Harvest Moon, it's pretty much like a chill version of Stardew Valley. You have you inherit a farm, usually from your grandfather or some kind of elderly figure that you befriend from the town, and you return to that town and farm and sort of just take it on for your own, either growing crops, ranching, fishing, going mining, or a combination of all four, while you're also maintaining relationships around town, trying to, get married with various bachelors and bachelorettes. It's a very chill experience. And where the line starts to get all blurry is in 2014, the original developer of the series, Marvelous, they basically, right? Am I getting that right? It was Marvelous.
I think so.
They had a disagreement with their publisher, which at the time was Natsume, and both of them kind of had different ideas of where they wanted to take the series. which ultimately led Marvelous to split and find a new publisher, Xseed, which is what they're currently under now. So Marvelous, again, the original developer. So like they created the game, right? Natsume just published it. The only thing that they had when the split happened was the name. They had the name trademarked because they were the publisher. Marvelous went on to, again, go on with Xseed, and while they had the rights to the original gameplay itself, how the game like looked and felt and everything, they didn't have the trademark for the name, so they rebranded themselves as Story of Seasons. So to put it really simply, Story of Seasons is the original Harvest Moon. Any Harvest Moon quote game that came out post 2014 is not technically made by the original people that made the original Harvest Moon. It's just a name. It's just a name. And to me personally, and this is where my personal feelings very much come into play here, is that the Story of Seasons / original Harvest Moon games are very good, top quality, like all the time. I played them as a child. I love them. I mean, Stardew Valley is pretty much just a modern reinterpretation of Harvest Moon, and everyone and their mother has played Stardew Valley. So you've played it in some capacity if you've played one, and you'll enjoy one if you enjoy the other. But the problem with Natsume's Harvest Moon is that they were originally sort of made like for mobile releases. It felt like Natsume was trying to understandably tap into the mobile market, where Marvelous, in my head, was probably like, no, we actually want to make good games for our fans that we've been loyal to for years. So we're gonna go do that instead. So yeah, there's two similar games coming out within a short period of time. And as a fan of the series, I'm telling you, if you have any interest in any farming sim, please do yourself a favor and try Story of Seasons, especially this new one. Which, again, I mean, Harvest Moon is one of those things where if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So there's not going to be a lot of drastic features that come into this one, right? Like, it's not like you can magically ranch more animals than you could before. Like, maybe you'll get a pig. I mean, pigs are fairly common in the series. You won't get like a dragon, right? Or like a giant cat thing, right? Like, that won't happen in a sequel. If anything, it's just more quality of life enhancements, and more time to play Harvest Moon. Basically, it would be something similar to a Hitman 3, where people that want more, they're gonna get more, most likely, and that's awesome. I played the shit out of the. They remade Harvest Moon Friends of Mineral Town. They remade that like a 1-to-1 faithful remake. They obviously had to change the name, but it was Story of Seasons. I think it was also titled Friends of Mineral Town, but they re-released that a couple months ago, last year, and it was wonderful. It was a super great remake, faithful as hell, and that's the kind of quality that I would want and would expect from this new one. And again, after watching videos, it pretty much just looks like a beefed up version of that old GBA remake with a new fresh spin on it. The character models look a bit more detailed, and you can change the clothing and you can change the hairstyle, and small tiny quality of life enhancements that overall probably make it a better experience than the one that preceded it. But it has my highest rank of approval, my stamp, and I need to make that very clear because I feel like people confuse the series very often. Like, I almost bought one of the new Harvest Moon games, just kind of thinking like, oh, yeah, it's a new Harvest Moon, huh? And then I looked into it and I was like, why does this look like a shitty mobile port that they just made on a toaster? And it was because it was exactly that, because they don't have the genius, the team that actually developed and did the work. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm coming too hard on these people, but it's just a series to me of like, oh, it's a wolf in sheep's clothes. I said that before, and I also mentioned how it felt like it's Konami, right? Like, Natsume is a Konami without Kojima. It was like when Konami was like, hey, we remastered all these super dope Metal Gear Solid scenes, and everyone was like, holy shit, yes, it's awesome. And then at the end of the trailer, you find out that it was for the Konami pachinko machines, and you're like, Why am I born in this world? Why does Konami want to see me cry?
Where can I even find those in the US?
You can't. That's the
Can't.
that's the thing. It was like, why did you even bother showing this to people at all outside of Japan? I don't. Oh, it was just so frustrating, dude. I mean, here I am. I have my own thoughts on Japanese gambling. Maybe I shouldn't, but I do.
Anyway, not talking about Japanese gambling. Okay, Mike, what do you have to say about this game?
I mean, I'm not really into these life simulators. I get bored really, really easy with these games. But if you want to play, like, if you like Stardew Valley and you want to find out where Stardew Valley came from, Story of Seasons is a great game to do that with. These games, I think there's a reason these games have been around for a long time. I'm just going to say that much. But if you want to play a good life simulator, if you've already logged in 300 hours in this Stardew and you want to start up a new game that's a bit different, still same concept. You're still gonna make a farm. You're still gonna get married. Blah blah blah. I think Story of Seasons is a game to be looking at right now.
I think I'm gonna buy this game. I really like Stardew. I have never played a Story of Seasons game. I've never played a Harvest Moon, so I know nothing about the long, deep-winded series and history. But the things I find funny about this is, one, they're both releasing within the same month.
Yeah.
And two, like, one, I feel like you can just tell Story of Seasons is kind of like more polished and is a lot more, let me see what I'm trying to say, like, confident in what they have to offer, rather than Harvest Moon kind of just looks silly and sounds silly. So I'm definitely interested in playing Story of Seasons. I think it is something I'm definitely going to pick up when it releases. I do really like Stardew Valley a lot, so I'm excited to play something that is similar to that, but not exactly that, because Stardew can get a little overwhelming, especially when you first start off and you don't really know what to do. There's also a lot of hidden secrets in Stardew Valley, so hopefully this is not as deep as Stardew, and it's something that I could play a little bit more casually.
As a fan of both, I can tell you that typically the Harvest Moon games would be more casual, like just right off the bat, because Stardew Valley had the big two differences between the casualness of the two is kind of like what you mentioned with the secrets. Yes, Stardew has a lot, but Stardew also has the community center building, which has you collecting and experiencing like a lot of the game. And I feel like that can be tad overwhelming with people, especially with the whole, like, your grandpa's coming back in 3 years, you gotta make him happy, see if you did good. Harvest Moon doesn't have that. It's very much just go at your own pace, do whatever. There's also no combat. There's like a cave system, but there's no rudimentary combat system. So you don't really have to worry about dying and losing all of your progress or getting sent back a certain amount of floors or losing anything. And I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong about this. In the one that I played on GameCube, there used to be a thing where if you don't get married within a certain time frame, you just lose the game. I'm pretty sure that they've changed that since, but I always thought that was really funny because it's just like, yeah, if you're a single old man working on a farm, you just don't bother. Just restart. Just no, we can't have that. You have to get married in our game. We need a heterosexual relationship to continue to continue growing crops. And it's like, why? Why? But yeah. Totally
because
casual.
You need to sacrifice your unborn children as fertilizer.
I mean,
Oh my god.
Doesn't everybody do that?
Is that where my kids went? Holy
now that
shit.
we think about it long and hard, another reason why you probably needed to sacrifice those kids was to keep the monsters at bay. We're going to toss it over to the last game that we're going to talk about for the night of Monster Hunter Rise, just so we don't have to keep hearing Brennan rant about how bad the latest Harvest Moon is. Love you, Brennan. Don't want to hear it. Monster Hunter Rise is a action role-playing game. It's developed and published by Capcom. It's coming out on the Switch, and it releases 3 days after Story of Seasons on March 26th. So if you get bored of harvesting crops and farming some animals, you can defeat some even bigger animals a couple days after Story of Seasons comes out.
Game of the year, baby. Game of the year. It's Monster Hunter.
Game of the year.
No. Persona 5 didn't. No. Strike. No, sorry.
That's
Here's
just
a
how
fight.
good Persona 5 is.
Ding, ding.
No. Here we go, baby. Here we go. Okay. So I told myself before we started the podcast, I was like, Brandon, don't talk too much about Monster Hunter. You're not gonna stop. And I've already talked enough. But all I want to say is the best parts of classic Monster Hunter plus the look and feel of world equals the best Monster Hunter game ever. And that's really it. I played the shit out of that demo. And the wire bug system was very weird at first. Same thing with how the monster grappling, the new mounting system works, and how you don't really just grapple or mount the monster. You kind of control the monster and you can use it to fight other monsters. It's wild. It's completely wild. The dog, you can pet the dog. That's awesome. You can have 2 dogs. Need I say more?
Double
you can
awesome.
pet both of the dogs. Like
Triple awesome.
At the same time?
I don't know about that. I hope that would be cool. I would hope. I feel like it really did take. It took what felt good about Monster Hunter GU on the Switch, and it also took the look and the feel and the absence of loading screens and how the world kind of really did feel like a world. Not completely. It doesn't feel more like one than the other. It feels like it walks this really tight line of old and newish. And I'm just really excited for it. I cannot express how excited I am for Monster Hunter Rise. World was phenomenal, and because of World, I was introduced to GU, so I don't have an extensive taste of classic Monster Hunter, but I think the GU had a pretty good feel for it. And man, Rise just, it felt good. It felt good. It felt strange, but it felt good. And I'm excited to play more. That's it. I'm done. No more Monster Hunter. No more talking. I'm done.
Like Story of Seasons, this isn't my kind of game. I've played Monster Hunter titles before. I have a lot of friends. I got a lot of family. They love Monster Hunter. Every time a new one comes out, they're like day one buys. But from what I'm hearing from them and from what I am seeing and just listening to Brennan, yeah, this game is probably going to be a buy it for a lot of people who want to kick a lot of big ass monster ass.
I've never played a Monster Hunter game. Like,
they're fun, man. They're fun.
They seem appealing. Like, I would never say no to breaking the knees of a giant monster if monsters have knees. But at the same time, it's just something that I feel like I don't know, I feel like I'd lose interest in it after a while. So it's not something I really want to devote time to if I already feel that way.
It is 100% a time sink. Like,
yeah,
Monster Hunter is one of those games where you can just pour 1,000 hours easily. Like, and those are, even every time I played, you have like a little hunter rank or whatever, and seeing some other people's ranks, it's just wild. And even thinking to yourself, like, I put a decent amount of time into this and barely scratched the surface. I mean, and I've played through World, I've played through GU, and there's stuff that I still haven't finished. And I probably, if you check either of my profiles, I can guarantee you they'll be up there. If not the most time spent, one of the most. And I still haven't scratched the surface. Whereas other games, I've got 100 hours and I've played it back to back 4 times. It's
I feel like nowadays, like, I like games that I can sink time into, because there's a lot of reward for me to do that. So it's being rewarded for the time that I'm spending inside that game, I like that because it doesn't get old. But at the same exact time, like, at least for me, like, I don't have a lot of time to really sink into games anymore because, I spend 8 hours a day at work and then I have to do other things. So, at least for me, I wouldn't want to play a game that's going to require a lot of time and then not feel rewarded when I don't really get anything out of playing it. So, I'm kind of like wishy-washy. Like,
Y-
it sounds
I can
cool, but
And I just looked up.
totally,
Oh, I was gonna say I just looked up Brennan's profile on my Switch. Yeah, the guy ain't lying.
yeah. It's like I can totally agree with that. Like and I'm trying to think like you don't necessarily have to put in the time. It's just that the game gives you the option to put in that time if you want, right? So there are 14 different weapon types. So at any point in time that I ever feel bored with the game, instead of playing a different game, I can just play a different weapon type and the whole thing changes. Like the playstyle from dual blades to heavy bowgun are completely different. And especially with the spin-off games like Generations Ultimate where they add even more options to those, like different stances for your weapons, the amount of time that you could take to master even one weapon is, it's not long. Like, I mean, it's not like it takes hundreds of hours to master a weapon, but I mean, if you did feel like you did at one point, you could just be like, all right, well, now I'm going to go try out hammers. And it's a completely different experience. You're still playing the same game and you're still making progress towards your goal. Like, it's never like a thing where your progress is tied to a weapon. It's similar to like a fighting game almost, where your roster is like, but instead of playing a different, like the same fighting game, every time you pick a new character, it's like a different way to play that fighting game. Does that make sense?
I was just about to bring up fighting games.
It's a weird so like
Yeah.
it's it can have a really high skill ceiling, but you don't necessarily have to put in the hours to get the full experience. Like, yes, there's some enemies that are gated and like items that are gated, but generally your skill is almost always determined by how you learn the patterns of the monsters because it's essentially a boss rush. I would equate it to something like, I don't even know, like Dark Souls, where like you could fight the last boss with no gear and still do it. It's just like possible, but you could do it. There is that high skill ceiling, but it's not like the hardest thing to get into, especially with World. I feel like World was a great entry point for people because it got rid of a lot of the stupid bullshit from the classic games. World was a great entry point, and I feel like Rise will only mold that more into an entry point. So, like, hopefully it'll be only even easier to get into the series, as opposed to it being just like this massive, like, I don't even know where to begin. I hope that makes sense. I don't know.
I think it does.
And I think it being on the Switch can really help with that. Because
Yeah.
if you are on the go, pandemic, I don't think you should be on the go. But if you are on the go, you can just take it with you, kick some monster ass on.
Or if you're in bed sick and you don't feel like staring at your TV.
Exactly.
It's a really, really good cooperative game. I cannot tell you. Like, I
Oh,
feel
yeah.
like I switched from. I used to play a lot of competitive games, and I found that was just not really satisfying in my own life. And I really strived to play more cooperative games, because that's where I found I had the most fun. It wasn't when I was hunting down other people, but when I was helping other people. And so Monster Hunter specifically, like it's second to save your friend, like it gets really intense really quick. And it's just one of the best cooperative experiences in my opinion. There have been times where I've played with friends and just the funniest shit happens. We're just laughing the whole time, not even really caring about what's going on in the background. It's a great time just for friends in general. Like, and it being on the Switch, especially during the pandemic, like Mike said, I feel like it's just another slam dunk.
Nice.
Yeah, so if you can play this with friends, Brennan's not lying. I have people I know that only play these games with friends, yet they still have hundreds of hours dedicated into these games.
Jesus Lord. 2 things I need: hundreds of hours and friends.
Not really, but it helps.
Mm-hmm.
So, after all of that, we are now going to wrap it up. You've heard us sit here and discuss the reviews for some games that came out in February, and we previewed a couple of games that are coming out in March. So, let's head on over to our wrap-up segment, where we'll give our thoughts on games that didn't get mentioned that are coming out, or maybe recommend some games to you guys that you should play that are coming out, or games that we are currently playing.
Scott Pilgrim vs. the World was great.
Oh yes, that's another one I gotta pick up.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
I'm gonna agree with Brandon. If you didn't get to play Scott Pilgrim vs. the World when it was on the 360 or the PS3, and you're looking just for a nice little arcade fighter, just something fun in general, yeah, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
If you want an Anamanaguchi album that has like, I don't know, 10 hours of arcade beat 'em up gameplay on the side, buy this album. I'm not even kidding. Like, I mean, obviously I'm a big fan of the game itself, but my goodness, Anamanaguchi's soundtrack is so good, and it's still good years later. And that's like 90% of the reason why I bought this game again, was just listen to the soundtrack, and it's still good. And it has a game attached to it too. That's awesome.
I feel like Brennan's coming off as very aggressive right now, and it scares me.
Bro,
so
I actually ordered the soundtrack on its own.
That's so much smarter. That's so honestly, dude, it's so good.
We need a whole separate episode for Scott Pilgrim.
Just not even Scott Pilgrim, just Anamanaguchi in general. Just chef's kiss, the best, most innovative like sound producers ever. Who thinks to take old NES consoles and like rig them to just make sounds, and then you make music out of that, like, and then you add guitar and like drum and bass in the background. Oof. Yeah. Sorry.
That was a noise, all right. Okay. But my recommendation would be Disco Elysium. It's coming out this month or next month, I think. And it's this super cool, I think they described it as like a watercolor game, detective game. So that's coming out, I think, on the Switch and consoles, because it's already out on PC. But it looks really neat. It's definitely going to be something that I pick up and play, along with A Story of Seasons. So catch me next month talking about it.
Disco's so good. It's so good.
I have it in my backlog. I just have not touched it.
Really quick, I've noticed that CRPGs, meaning computer RPGs, a lot of them have been ported over to consoles more and more recently, and I really dig that shift. I haven't personally played a CRPG on a console yet, but Disco Elysium would be one that I would be very willing to start with.
We'll probably talk about it next month or whenever it comes out, because it definitely does sound awesome and interesting. And if it's worth noting the differences between the PC port and the console port, then we will definitely highlight that for you guys and let you know which one you should get. But we're gonna wrap it up here. This is the pre-review crew signing off for February and March 2021. We hope you have a great night wherever you are throughout your day. See you next time. We're done. We're done. We're done. We're done.
Gamer's a stupid word.
We're done. Absolutely done.